He said it quietly, across the conference table. My father didn't raise his voice. He never had to. My sister sat beside him, eyes on her phone. HR was CC'd on the email already. The air smelled like burnt coffee. I nodded once. People watched. Nobody spoke. My badge felt heavier than usual. I smiled because that was easier. He said I'd take care of her or lose my job. I realized something then. I wasn't being asked. I was being replaced. Not today. Not tomorrow. It had already happened before I walked into that room. That was the truth. I didn't ask my father for much. I never had. When my sister's divorce finalized, the call came to me anyway. Not from her. From him. He framed it like logistics. Temporary help. A few months. She needed a place to land, someone stable, someone discreet. He said my job put me in a position to help. He said family does that. I believed him enough to listen. I told him I couldn't take her in full time. I was moving soon. I had interviews. I had commitments. I offered alternatives. I could help find an apartment. I could front the deposit for a short lease. I could coordinate childcare schedules. I said it calmly, the way you do when you want to be reasonable. I expected negotiation. I expected a pause. There wasn't one. He leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. He said my sister had already been through enough. He said she needed certainty. He said I had always been reliable, which was why this made sense. He didn't ask what my plans were. He didn't ask if I could afford it. He looked at the window while he talked, like the decision was already done. My sister didn't look up. Then he said it, not as a threat, as a fact. If I didn't take responsibility, he would need to reconsider my role at the company. He said clients value stability. He said distractions reflect poorly. He said it would be cleaner to make a change now rather than later. He smiled like he was doing me a favor. Someone laughed softly down the table. I don't remember who. This wasn't new. It just had better lighting. When I was 22, I postponed graduate school because my sister needed help with her kids. It was supposed to be 1 semester. It became 2 years. When I finally reapplied, the program was full. Everyone said it was bad timing. When I bought my first house, my father put it in his name for tax reasons. He said it was temporary. It stayed that way. When my promotion came up, it was delayed because my sister needed the title more for her custody case. I was told to be patient. I always was. I noticed the same pattern in smaller ways. Invitations that arrived late, decisions made without me, emails forwarded after the fact, praise given publicly, credit reassigned quietly. I learned to accept it because it was easier than explaining myself. I learned to keep my voice even. I learned to say yes before the sentence finished. Sitting there, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty, like something finally closed. I understood that my usefulness had an expiration date, and it wasn't tied to my effort. It was tied to their convenience. I nodded again. I said I'd think about it. I left the room without rushing. In the hallway, the lights hummed. I didn't cry. I didn't plan. I just stopped reaching. I drove home slowly that night, radio off, windows cracked. The house felt unfamiliar, like a place staged for sale. I made dinner I didn't eat. I opened my laptop and closed it again. I watched the clock move. Messages came in. I didn't answer. I slept early and woke before dawn. Nothing felt urgent anymore. The panic I expected never showed. There was only space, clean and quiet, waiting for something honest to enter. By morning, the decision felt made, not by me, but by years of being useful, then set aside, without ceremony. It finally felt clear. Enough was enough. Once I stopped answering, the pattern got louder. Not dramatic, just obvious. There were the small things first. A family dinner I found out about from photos. My sister smiling at a table I used to sit at. The caption said, "Finally together again." Someone commented, "A heart." No one tagged me. At work, meetings shifted without notice. Calendars updated after decisions were made. I was copied for formality, not input. When I asked a question, the room went quiet, then moved on. I remembered other moments I had brushed past. My birthday skipped because my sister was having a hard week. A vacation postponed because she needed help moving. A client dinner where my seat was reassigned because she needed to be there for appearances. It was always framed gently. "You understand, right? You're strong. You don't mind." I never argued, so they never stopped. I tried to exist normally for a while. I showed up on time. I did my work. I smiled at the right moments. But it felt like watching myself through glass. Conversations happened around me, not with me. Decisions were announced, not discussed. When I spoke, people nodded the way you do when you've already decided. Online made it worse. Posts about family support, about resilience, about standing by each other. My sister shared articles about starting over. My father liked them within minutes. I wasn't mentioned, even when I was the one paying for things, arranging things, smoothing things over. When someone asked how I was, the answer was always vague. "She's busy. She's fine. We didn't want to bother her." That line stayed with me. Something shifted quietly after that. Not anger. Tiredness. The kind that settles in your bones. I stopped volunteering explanations. I stopped reminding people of dates, deadlines, favors owed. I let messages sit unread. I took screenshots without knowing why. I wrote things down at night, not to vent, just to remember. Dates, words, silences. I started to see myself as temporary in their story, a supporting role that could be written out when the plot changed. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I wasn't excluded because I failed. I was excluded because I was convenient to ignore. That realization didn't hurt the way I expected. It felt like clarity, like finally understanding the rules of a game I'd been losing politely for years. By the end of that month, I had stopped trying to belong. I was still there, technically, but I was already gone in every way that mattered. They waited until they needed me again. It came as a group message. Casual. No greeting. My sister needed help covering a few expenses until things stabilized. Just a short bridge, my father said. He framed it like teamwork. He said it would look bad if she struggled publicly. He said my position made this simple. He didn't mention the meeting. He didn't mention the threat. He acted like nothing had happened. I read it twice, then a third time. I noticed how carefully it was written. No apology, no acknowledgement, just expectation. As if my silence over the past weeks had been a pause, not a boundary. As if I was resting, not stepping away. I replied with one sentence. "I can't do that." No explanation, no timeline, no softening. The response came quickly. Confusion first, then disappointment. My sister said she thought I understood how hard this was. My father asked if I was being emotional. He reminded me of everything they had done for me. He said this wasn't like me. He said family doesn't keep score. Someone else chimed in about loyalty, about stepping up, about how temporary sacrifices build long-term trust. I didn't answer. The messages kept coming. Different tones. Concern. Frustration. Then irritation. I was told I was being difficult. I was asked if something was wrong with me. I was warned not to make this bigger than it needed to be. A cousin called and left a voicemail I didn't listen to. A co-worker asked if everything was okay at home. I said yes. That was true. I muted the thread. Then I archived it. I didn't block anyone. I didn't announce anything. I just removed myself from the noise. It felt strange at first, like forgetting something important. Then it felt light. A week later, HR emailed me about restructuring. Very neutral, very polite. They wanted to discuss my role. I replied with availability, no emotion, no urgency. By then, the decision had already passed through me and settled. I wasn't bracing for impact. I was already standing somewhere else. What surprised me wasn't their reaction. It was how quickly they stopped trying once I didn't bend. The messages slowed. The concern faded. No one asked what I needed. No one followed up with curiosity. The silence answered questions I hadn't known how to ask. That was the moment I understood the truth of it. My value had always been conditional. My refusal didn't change that. It just revealed it. I closed my laptop and packed a small bag for the next day. I slept well that night, better than I had in months. For the first time, saying no hadn't caused chaos. It had created space, and I knew I wasn't going back. The silence lasted longer than I expected. Weeks passed, then a month. No follow-ups, no check-ins, no accidental calls. I wasn't chased. I wasn't missed. That absence said more than any argument ever could. Life kept moving in small, ordinary ways. I finished out my notice period. I boxed things at night. I donated furniture instead of storing it. The house emptied quietly, one room at a time. I heard about them through other people. My sister couldn't keep up with the rent she chose. Temporary turned into overdue. My father's company ran into trouble when a client pulled out. The restructure wasn't strategic after all. It was necessary. Someone mentioned legal fees. Someone else mentioned a loan application that didn't go through. No one asked me for help again. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel guilty either. I felt detached, like hearing news about a town I no longer lived in. Their problems unfolded the way problems do when they've been postponed too long. Systems don't negotiate. They don't remember intentions. They just move forward. There was one brief encounter. A mutual friend ran into me at a store and said my father asked about me, said he hoped I was doing well, said maybe we could talk sometime. The message was delivered lightly, like an invitation that didn't need an answer. I smiled and said thank you. I didn't pass anything back. My new place was smaller, quieter. Nothing matched. I learned the sounds of it at night. I learned which window stuck and which light flickered. I cooked simple meals. I walked more. I stopped checking my phone out of habit. No one needed anything from me there. That took some getting used to. Sometimes I thought about the meeting, the table, the coffee, the way I smiled. I used to replay it, wondering what would have happened if I'd spoken differently. Now I don't. It played out exactly as it needed to. If I hadn't been pushed, I might have stayed useful forever. I didn't win anything dramatic. I didn't prove a point. I just left. And in leaving, I kept the part of myself that had been slowly traded away for approval. Peace didn't arrive all at once. It showed up in ordinary mornings, in unanswered messages, in the relief of not being needed. That's how I know it was over. Not because they changed, because I did.